be here tonight. And God, I ask that you heal the people that we have lost in Columbiana this week. Comfort their families and and thank you for letting Columbiana show such support to all those families. And Father, I pray that you'll be with us tonight as we go over our agenda, and I pray that we will make the best decisions for the citizens of Columbiana. And thank you for all of those that represent us and all of those that take care of us and watch over us while we sleep. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to look over the agenda. It's a fairly standard agenda, and while you're doing that, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Lilly.
Here.
Mizell.
Here.
Rustin. King.
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Mayor Mitchell.
Here. Okay, so take a few more minutes to look at the agenda. All right, and as usual, the first item is approval of the minutes from the 7 February regular council meeting. The council's had an opportunity to read the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Okay, if not, let the record show that the minutes are approved by unanimous consent of those present. And I do want to clarify that we do have a quorum even in Councilman Rustin's absence. Okay, department head reports for at least half of those departments that we have this time, and so we have the police department.
Okay, so everything's looking good as far as budget and things, vehicles, equipment, training, and all that. We'll be conducting active shooter training during spring break, most likely at Evan Hill. I think that's going to be the next one. We're still trying to decide whether we do Evan Hill or high school. It's going to end up being one of the two. Safety, we still got one on-the-job injury. We're still waiting to hear back from what was comp on it. 2 officers' positions are still opening. We're still taking applications for those. As far as everything else, we're looking good. Only issues concerned is that we're getting some complaints, especially on Mooney Road and Magnolia Meadows, about coyotes in town. I spoke to Alabama Wildlife and Fish, and they basically tell me that it's a wild animal. They don't trap. They don't trap them. And so he did give me several trapping agencies to call that actually this is what they do, is go out and they trap, whether it be raccoons or coyotes, whatever the case may be. I put in calls to 3 of them. I have not heard anything back. I tried again this morning. I still haven't heard anything back, so I'm kind of looking to see what our next step is. It's also my understanding that animal control, being that they're a wild animal and not a domesticated dog or something like that, they're not gonna fool us. So that's kind of where we are with it. When I find something out from the trappers, at least give us an estimate, see what it's going to cost. So what we do advise is that anyone seeing coyotes, hearing coyotes, whatever the case may be, to the body farm, and lay them out in different scenarios. On top of the ground, they'll bury them in cars and trunks. On top of the ground, they'll bury them in cars and trunks, whatever. And then after so many weeks or months, they'll go out and they'll study the rate of decomposition. They'll also teach officers and forensics people how to locate the difference between disturbed ground, undisturbed ground, what might be a grave, and once you do find a grave or some type of crime scene, how to excavate that crime scene. It's kind of an archaeological class and a forensics class, kind of all mixed into one. Anyway, John is, from what I understand, he's probably the second person in Shelby County to receive this training. He's been trying to get in this class for several years, and he was finally awarded it. In fact, the coroner's office is actually paying for him to go to this class, and so we're excited to see what comes of it. I hope he never has to use it here in town, but if it comes up, I'll have somebody with that kind of training.
That's awesome.
Morbid but useful. I
Very morbid,
suppose.
you asked me if I wanna go, I said, no, I'm good.
I am curious, would this make his services in demand such that we would lose him? Or could we hire him out, for lack of a better term?
Well, what we have agreed to do, since the coroner's office is paying for it, that if something does arise and they do need him, that he's available to be called out. He's already on the major crimes task force anyway. And so, they're gonna get called out, he's just gonna get a task.
So one other thing that I looked into, about the coyotes is, yeah, you know, animal control's not gonna do anything about it. But it is legal to hunt them or trap them, but you have to have a permit from Fish and Wildlife.
Yep, you have to have a permit.
And so I was curious, if PD got called, would PD need to apply for a permit ahead of time, or
We
would
would
you
need
be
to-
able to shoot one if you?
If the dog is deemed vicious and he's a threat to persons, property, then yeah, we're able to eliminate that.
Well, you know, coyotes are potentially threats to people. They're certainly a threat to other animals and pets and things like that. So the way I understood it, if you had a permit to hunt coyotes, you could do it, and they don't have to be an imminent threat. Let me put it that way.
Right.
And so that was my point, is if somebody called you and you were happened to see one, would the police department be able to shoot?
Yeah. That would be a-
And you wouldn't require a permit ahead of time?
I don't think so.
Could you look into that just to make sure? I mean, if there's something that you could get and keep it for a while to cover the department, even if they just send you an email and said, yes,
Yeah,
you guys
absolutely.
can do
Yeah,
it, you've got the
Yeah,
document.
I'll get in touch with the wildlife agent I've been speaking with
Yeah.
and see what he can.
Last thing I would want to say, oh, you shouldn't have shot that.
Yeah.
animal.
Exactly.
So there a coyote permit on, or the permits or tap for coyotes on?
It is a permit to trap or.
I'm gonna assume most gun owning people are not worried about that permit.
Most are not. Like I said, you know.
But- But technically, you're not supposed to shoot one without one.
That's right.
You're not supposed to trap one without
So,
one. And so the people that we would hire, if we did, if they're gonna do trapping, they would have to have the permit. And then I would be concerned about, you know, where they put the traps, the safety of children.
Exactly.
and
That's
other
why we're
animals
trying to
and
get an
stuff.
idea of a specific, we have a pretty good idea. We know the old golf course is right now, I guess, one of our hot spots, but we've had reports of them on the other end of town towards North Main and 25 near Chelsea Road. And so we're trying to get an idea of a little bit more specific location. One, if we were to get somebody to come put out traps, you'd have to have permission from the landowner, whether you have a permit or not, to be able to put the traps on to start with. And so we're just trying to get a good idea where to start.
And they are on Old 25. They're actually in the woods behind our house, between us and Stancil. Oh, they're bad out there.
Yeah, I mean,
So they're
we've gotten
everywhere.
reports, it's not from us, but it's from other places, that for some reason coyotes are bad this year. I don't know.
They are.
You know, whether it's lack of deer or what the problem is, I don't know, but they're just.
How do you get rid of groundhogs?
My daddy told me bubble gum, I put bubble gum in that cup, she was
On Highway 30, I know they run across from Beverly, probably towards your house, and come up the line.
Yeah.
I've been in my bathroom, seen in the backyard. I think we can take care of those.
That's like, not saying either one.
I don't know. I just looked up coyotes. You have to have a permit for coyotes.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody got any other questions for the chief? All right, thanks, chief. All right, admin.
Everything is going good at City Hall. Everything is actually green right now. No safety issues, budget is good, fully staffed, no repairs for, on the facilities at this time, and all of our training is up to date.
Yeah.
At the bottom is the chart showing the top section is the general fund, and then the bottom section is all other funds. That is through the end of January.
So we're about 1.2 million ahead of where our budget says we should be, and it's just driven by timing more than anything else. Okay, any questions for the clerk about the administration and the budget? The court, the judge is here tonight.
I'm sorry I missed last time, I simply forgot.
At least you're honest.
He's truthful.
At least you're honest.
Well, you need one of those little cards like the president.
Well, I have a calendar on my smartphone, but it requires smart to be able to operate. I'm limited. A couple of things. One, what Chief mentioned, I did some fairly extensive research on the body farm a few years ago, just because it's a personal interest to me, for a lot of reasons. Just some strange interests I have, but that's a big deal. I mean, for y'all that don't know, that is a big deal. Not a lot of folks get in that. It's a world-renowned program. I've done some fairly extensive reading on it, and that's a pretty big deal. I think that's a pretty good thing for our police department. Couple of things. Our annual report to AOC has been submitted. Now, what that arose out of was the Brookside fiasco, and they had some ill-advised legislator pass a law that said we had to do a report about the percentage of city income that was being generated by the municipal courts, and we've submitted that. There's been no criteria to say what's good and what's bad, but we have submitted that, and I'm sure that will either be forgotten about at some point in time, or they will give us some criteria to tell us what is acceptable or unacceptable. Year to date, we are ahead of collections from 22. Again, the kiosk cards, swiping the cards has helped us a little bit. I probably got this in the wrong spot, but under stoplight summary. And I've been talking with this about my last 4 or 5 clerks, and we finally decided to kind of pull the plug and try to do a defensive driving school with our own personnel. And as it turns out, I think Chief Officer Hall is already certified to teach that class. So what we have been doing, people that have speeding tickets, and there's 2 or 3 different classifications. There's an online course, and then there's a 4-hour in-person course, and then there's an 8-hour in-person course that gives our prosecutors some options on dealing with people with speeding tickets and reckless driving and some other things, with the agreement that the officer will agree to that person doing that, the prosecutor agrees to it, the public defender agrees to it, and there's no reason, there has to be some deterrent effect to it, and we've always had to send that off. I mean, we've had to send people to Pelham or Hoover or whatever to do that. Hoover's been doing it for years. Well, we just decided, why can't we do it? Well, the materials are available. As a matter of fact, Lisa is there now. Went over to, I think, Alabaster to look at their defensive driving school. And if you send somebody to defensive driving school, they complete that defensive driving school, and they don't have another offense within the next 90 days, then the case will be dismissed. That's a fairly common outcome in a speeding ticket, a common speeding ticket. But anyway, we're looking at doing it that. We have the facility, we have the officer that's certified to do it. Our only cost would be to buy the books, and that's kind of built into the fee we would charge to do that. People typically are very happy to pay $50, $60 more, and a speeding ticket's $196. And they're typically quite happy to give you $250 to keep that off their driver's license. If the officer agrees to that, and there's no other reason not to do it. It works pretty well. We also have a program for young people, and so if we implement that, we can keep some of that money. Not that that's the purpose of what we're trying to do, but that keeps some of that money here. Also, it does have a deterrent effect, and most of the time we could do it in your office. I think there's enough room to do it down there. If not, you could do it here. It would be once a month or once every 2 weeks, depending on how many people we have that need to do that. Other than that, same old, same old. Things roll along, not much different year to year. We are in tax refund season. Our collections do tend to go up because people get tax refunds, and we do tend to collect a little money on old cases, the 21s and 22 cases. The people hadn't had money to pay, but we tend to collect some of that, not all of it. But everything seems to be, the prosecutor's working well, defense counsel's working well. Everything seems to be moving along, fairly smoothly.
Questions for the judge? I suppose there's not much in a name, but, I think defensive driving is something as part of, but a little bit different from safe driving, so.
It's better than calling it offensive driving.
Well, exactly, because I was gonna say that if they're speeding, they're probably offensive driving, so. But, so I assume it's got the safe driving built into it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and most people qualify, and again, our prosecutor always asks policemen if they agree to it, and typically they do. They may have some reason not to from time to time. Somebody may have had a smart mouth or may have not acted properly. The 4-hour course has worked really well for those of us that are technically and electronically challenged. You have to do that online, you have to pay with a credit card, you have to do those sort of things. The 4-hour in-person course is not particularly burdensome. We have sentenced the 8-hour course for some more egregious offenses. That's a little testy. That's 8 hours. That's a whole Saturday. I don't know the cost, but I think it's approaching $400. That's a bit of a burden. There's some deterrent to that. If the offense fits that issue, we have sentenced that from time to time. But hopefully we'll see how it works here.
Of course, they'll do it if they keep the points off the record.
Truck drivers love it. They'll sit through anything because they can't have anything on their license. Anyway.
All right,
Thank you.
anything else for the judge? Thanks, Judge, appreciate it. Public Works, Alan.
All right. Everything's running pretty good. We finally, got our big truck back from where it was in the shop and still running through it. We've had a few problems since we got it back where it's just been set and stuff, so long waiting on it to get fixed. Well, we're still working on it, and once we get it back up the other, we're gonna have to get it cleaned up, and it's gonna have to go to the shop just to see exactly what's wrong with it, with all the lights that's on it and everything, with the codes and stuff. One that I told y'all that's probably gonna have to have the turbocharger replaced on it. We received our new backhoe this past Monday that was approved in the budget and stuff, and it's sitting on the shed down there. The other farm tractor to cut the road right away is supposed to be here sometimes in March, what they told me, so I'm looking for it probably about April or May. That's the way it usually ends up, the way things is running right now. Other than that, we've just been working in the parks, got all the lights that was blowed at the baseball field replaced and everything for baseball to get kicked off. On safety, we did have an employee who got hurt last Friday. Lucky it wasn't no worse than what it was. We was cutting a tree out of the road. It fell about 2 o'clock Friday morning, and we was up there cutting it out Saturday, Friday morning, about 7 o'clock, trying to get where people could go to work, and had it down, and he swung the boom around on the bucket truck and was getting out of the basket to come down the step, missed the step, fell about 3 or 4 foot, hit the asphalt, and had a small brain bleed that kept him in the hospital overnight. Then he come home Saturday morning, it was a lot smaller than what it was, and you gotta go back in 2 weeks for another CT scan and stuff. Skinned the top of his head up pretty good and everything.
Mm.
But other than that, everything's running fine.
Glad he's okay.
So was it subdural, the brain, or do you know? Or was
I don't
it
know.
epidural?
Just know it was a brain.
So how's he doing now?
I talked to him before I come in here, he doing fine, he said he ain't near as sore as he was, I'm talking about, cause he's
But his head's
70,
not hurt.
he's 70-something years old,
Oh, so I think I probably know who it
and
is.
a Larry. But other than that, everything's running fine.
Well, about to that point, when you get hit in the head, that's the safest place to get hit at that age, so. Shouldn't have said that.
He didn't look any worse than what it was.
Okay, any questions for Alan?
Where are we, can you give us an update on the shop, what's going on with,
We
Starting
have
on that.
a, meeting tomorrow evening at 3 o'clock for the bid opening and stuff. And we'll know more after tomorrow. And I know there's one thing I forgot to put on there, the power company is going through town, I don't know how good they had on putting the street lights up, replacing, but they've got a bunch of them replaced, but I think is that they replace them as they get them in and stuff, cause there's certain ones of them, it's gonna be a certain size, and some of them are gonna be a different wattage and stuff.
Now, is this the, LED lights
Yes,
that
sir.
they're all putting in?
Mhm.
And they're just gonna do the main thoroughfares like the,
And they're supposed to go all through town.
so even in the residential areas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but they've been by over on Pitts Drive and replaced all of them.
that's good.
Mhm.
All right, thanks, Alan. Any other questions? Okay, board reports, we have anything from the planning commission?
Let's see, we did meet after our last council meeting.
We did, cause the Davises were there.
We had a, public hearing for a rezoning, but that was tabled, to gather some further information. I think Dale and Ron Talley went and met with Bill Justice about a couple of things. So we'll bring that back up at our next planning meeting.
What was the rezoning, what area?
It's next door to Dr. Thornburg's office where, not going to.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, you're talking about that lot that's,
It's a split
that runs
lot.
behind it, it's a split lot, yeah.
So that'll be
It's
brought back
one
up.
plot of land,
But
but
it
it's,
has two zonings.
yeah, okay.
So we'll bring that back up at the next, planning meeting. And that's all we
That's
had.
it.
So nothing's coming to council right now.
Rec board will, Ricky's not here tonight, so Alan, you got any updates from the water board?
We just had a regular business meeting, went over our audit and everything. Other than that, that's it.
Okay. Nothing to be concerned about there?
No, sir, everything was fine.
And, any updates or progress on the meter change out? When's that gonna be complete, do we know?
They first said toward the end of this month, I think they're gonna run over somebody, run into some problems, getting stuff they needed and all that. So it's probably gonna be mid-March unless something changes.
So they think they'll be finished by then?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they're shooting for.
Any other questions for the water board? All right,
Beautification board,
okay.
don't forget.
That's on a different, we actually had you on the agenda in a special spot.
You special.
And it's, we're coming right to it. So the first thing though, before we get to that, is, we have to, elect, the council does, voting delegates, for the Alabama League of Municipalities annual meeting. I think I sent something out to you guys. It's gonna be in Birmingham this year. So, if, you guys wanna go to that, it's easy. We don't have to stay in a hotel. We can go to the meeting, come home at the end of the day, and you can go to some sessions. You don't have to go to all of them, but you do have to register. But they will have their business meeting, and we need to appoint a delegate. And usually it appoints an alternate. I have registered already, and we've got until April 25th. So if you guys want to take some time on this, I don't think we have to pass a formal resolution. We can just vote on it here in the council meeting, and then we have a form that we fill out and we send back to the league and say, here's our primary delegate, and here's our alternate. So otherwise, we won't have anybody to vote at the meeting. That's all I really want to say about that for right now. So we can come back to this.
What was the date of the meeting, the annual meeting?
It is in May, and I can't remember off the top of my head, I sent the thing, it's always in May,
Okay.
It's the 11th through the 13th, I think.
that sounds about right,
Because, May 10th through the 13th.
yeah. And nothing happens on the 10th, really.
So
So
what
it's
day
really-
would we need to go?
Pardon?
What day would we need to go?
Well, I mean, for
For the
example,
breakout sessions.
Oh, they're-
so there are two, and that, if the 10th is the initial start date, then it would be the 11th and the 12th would be the 2 days that you would want to go. I don't think there's really anything that happens on the 13th, other
I
than
think
you
it's
just
just a.
check out and go home. But on the 10th, the city of Birmingham, I think, is hosting a reception in the evening. So if you wanted to go to register, to go to that, it's a good networking session. I looked at the agenda, and again, I apologize, I don't have the agenda with me, and then, but the best, the most productive day to me seemed to be the 12th. It was the second day after the initial registration on the 10th. So the 11th, we have some breakout sessions, but it's really hard to tell what's going to be done in those. But as far as the training that they give, it looked like the 12th was probably going to be the most productive. So anyway, all that stuff went out there. So if you guys can take a look at it, register, you may be able to go to some of those things. And then the last night they have a dinner and it's a party and all that kind of stuff. So. Okay, so beautification board. Lisa, are you gonna?
I will.
And Kim, I guess you guys have got it.
Yes, she.
Do you want to go over the cemetery stuff first?
That's actually what we were gonna do.
That's what
It's
you're
just
gonna
the
talk about?
cemetery.
Yeah,
Actually, our proposal is to remove the shrubbery at the old cemetery, but Lisa has all of the details on the pictures and talking to,
So I got it on 2 charts.
Okay, so I also, made a little packet for everybody. This is just something that has come up since I have been on the beautification board. Every year, citizens say, oh my gosh, I wish y'all could clean up that old cemetery. The hedges are 20 or 30 years old. They seem to just catch trash and litter, and they've got random trees and weeds and things like that growing up through them. They've been cut back. These were cut back, I want to say, maybe in June, I think, before Liberty Day. And so they come back every year. They're boxwoods and hollies. You can see some of them, like if they're not trimmed, they grow out into the roadway. So if you've got, trucks with things hanging off, lumber or something like that, they're just ugly. At this point, they're just ugly. Our proposal is to just start from scratch, cut these down to the ground level. They will try to sprout back up, especially this time of year, but we'll have to trim them again, put a little bit of poison, and I've talked to 2 different landscapers that say it can be done, we can do that, because the main thing we don't want to do is disturb any of the plots. We don't want to uproot any of the roots and, cause a bigger problem. I have spoken with a couple of families that actually have their loved ones in those plots at length, and none of them have a problem. They've even said, cut those awful trees, bushes right beside our family's tombstones. That's fine. They're awful. So our goal is to make it more visually pleasing when you're driving through the area. You'll notice on the left-hand side of the street there, I don't have any pictures, but when they did the sidewalk renovation, they took down a lot of those old hedges then. The new sidewalk is in, and it just looks cleaner and neater, and it makes your eye go into the cemetery to actually look at some of the old headstones. I mean, they're historical. And the city cemetery on the right side here is the same way. It's a quaint cemetery, there's a lot of history there, that gorgeous oak tree. We don't want to take away from that, but at the same time, it's time to do something with these bushes. Our proposal is to get them completely cut down, kill the root system, which, you know, this may take a year, and get it cleaned up and decide. Listen to everybody's input. If we still want to, you know, as we're driving by, as we're getting input from people, if people still feel very strongly that we want something there, we can talk about, you know, a more unison row of something low growing or something, you know, smaller and more dwarf in size that's not gonna be so obtrusive and big like these, big hedges. But we get a lot of complaints about these bushes. And so, when, at the beginning of the year, you know, I asked all of our board to please, you know, come up with your 10 most important, projects that you wanna work on for the year. We're gonna prioritize them. 8 people had this down. So it's very important to us. We want to try to work on this little cemetery. You know, and this would be the beginning of it. It probably needs some gravel. It needs a little bit of attention, you know. It's historical, but, anyway, I printed it off. I gave some pictures from across the street and things like that. You know, it's not something that we take lightly that we're working on a cemetery. But I do think the end result will be more visually appealing than this. If you go by there, like when I stopped to take all these pictures, I picked up a whole garbage bag. I mean, not just a grocery bag, a whole garbage bag of beer bottles, beer cans, spit cups, water bottles. I mean, it's just, and to me, that's so disrespectful to, you know, our loved ones. So, this is one of our big projects. While I'm doing this, a couple of the other things, Kim and I had a really good, I thought, meeting with the mayor just to go over some of the projects that we really want to, prioritize this year.